Welcome to Bite at a Time Books, where we read you your favorite classics one bite at a time. My name is Bree Carlile, and I love to read and wanted to share my passion with listeners like you. You can sign up for our newsletter at biteatatimebooks.com. You'll also find our new t-shirts in the shop, including podcast shirts and quote shirts from your favorite classic novels. Be sure to follow my show on your favorite podcast platform so you get all the new episodes. We're part of the Bite at a Time Books Productions Network. If you'd also like to hear what inspired your favorite classic author to write their novels, and what was going on in the world at the time, check out the Bite at a Time Books Behind the Story podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Today we'll be continuing Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Chapter 2. Marius Poor. It is the same with wretchedness as with everything else. It ends by becoming bearable. It finally assumes a form and adjusts itself. One vegetates. That is to say, one develops in a certain meager fashion, which is, however, sufficient for life. This is the mode in which the existence of Marius Pontmercy was arranged. He had passed the worst straits. The narrow pass was opening out a little in front of him. By dint of toil, perseverance, courage, and will, he had managed to draw from his work about 700 francs a year. He had learned German and English, thanks to Courfeyrac, who had put him in communication with his friend the publisher. Marius filled the modest post of utility man in the literature of the publishing house. He drew up prospectuses, translated newspapers, annotated editions, compiled biographies, etc. Net product, year in and year out, 700 francs. He lived on it. How? Not so badly. We will explain. Marius occupied in the Gorbeau house for an annual sum of 30 francs. A den minus a fireplace called a cabinet, which contained only the most indispensable articles of furniture. This furniture belonged to him. He gave 3 francs a month to the old principal tenant to come and sleep his hole, and to bring him a little hot water every morning, a fresh egg, and a penny roll. He breakfasted on this egg and roll. His breakfast varied in cost from 2 to 4 sous according as eggs were dear or cheap. At 6 o'clock in the evening, he descended the Rue Saint-Jacques to dine at Rousseau's, opposite Bassett's, the stamp dealers, on the corner of the Rue des Mathurin. He ate no soup. He took a 6-sou plate of meat, a half portion of vegetables for 3 sous, and a 3-sou dessert. For 3 sous, he got as much bread as he wished. As for wine, he drank water. When he paid at the desk where Madame Rousseau, at that period still plump and rosy, majestically presided, he gave a sou to the waiter, and Madame Rousseau gave him a smile. Then he went away. For 16 sous, he had a smile and a dinner. This restaurant Rousseau, where so few bottles and so many water-crafts were emptied, was a calming potion rather than a restaurant. It no longer exists. The proprietor had a fine nickname. He was called Rousseau the Aquatic. Thus, breakfast 4 sous, dinner 16 sous. His food cost him 20 sous a day, which made 365 francs a year. Add the 30 francs for rent, and the 36 francs to the old woman, plus a few trifling expenses for 450 francs. Marius was fed, lodged, and waited on. His clothing cost him 100 francs, his linen 50 francs, his washing 50 francs. The whole did not exceed 650 francs. He was rich. He sometimes lent 10 francs to a friend. Courfeyrac had once been able to borrow 60 francs of him. As far as fire was concerned, as Marius had no fireplace, he had simplified matters. Marius always had 2 complete suits of clothes, the one old for every day, the other brand new for special occasions. Both were black. He had but 3 shirts, one on his person, the second in the commode, and the third in the washerwoman's hands. He renewed them as they wore out. They were always ragged, which caused him to button his coat to the chin. It had required years for Marius to attain to this flourishing condition. Hard years. Difficult, some of them, to traverse, others to climb. Marius had not failed for a single day. He had endured everything in the way of destitution. He had done everything except contract debts. He did himself the justice to say that he had never owed anyone a sou. A debt was, to him, the beginning of slavery. He even said to himself that a creditor is worse than a master, for the master possesses only your person. A creditor possesses your dignity and can administer to it a box on the ear. Rather than borrow, he went without food. He had passed many a day fasting. feeling that all extremes meet and that, if one is not on one's guard, lowered fortunes may lead to baseness of soul. He kept a jealous watch on his pride. Such and such a formality or action, which in any other situation would have appeared merely a deference to him, now seemed insipidity, and he nerved himself against it. His face wore a sort of severe flush. He was timid even to rudeness. During all these trials, he had felt himself encouraged and even uplifted at times by a secret force that he possessed within himself. The soul aids the body, and at certain moments raises it. It is the only bird which bears up its own cage. Besides his father's name, another name was graven in Marius's heart, the name of Thénardier. Marius, with his grave and enthusiastic nature, surrounded with a sort of aureole the man to whom, in his thoughts, he owed his father's life, that intrepid sergeant who had saved the colonel amid the bullets and the cannonballs of Waterloo. He never separated the memory of this man from the memory of his father, and he associated them in his veneration. It was a sort of worship in two steps, with the grand altar for the colonel and the lesser one for Thénardier. What redoubled the tenderness of his gratitude towards Thénardier was the idea of the distress into which he knew that Thénardier had fallen, and which had engulfed the latter. Marius had learned at Montfermeil of the ruin and bankruptcy of the unfortunate innkeeper. Since that time, he had made unheard of efforts to find traces of him, and to reach him in that dark abyss of misery in which Thénardier had disappeared. Marius had beaten the whole country. He had gone to Chaise, to Bondy, to Gurney, to Nogent, to Lagny. He had persisted for 3 years, expending in these explorations the little money which he had laid by. No one had been able to give him any news of Thénardier. He was supposed to have gone abroad. His creditors had also sought him, with less love than Marius, but with as much assiduity, and had not been able to lay their hands on him. Marius blamed himself, and was almost angry with himself for his lack of success in his researches. It was the only debt left him by the colonel, and Marius made it a matter of honor to pay it. What, he thought, when my father lay dying on the field of battle, did Thénardier contrive to find him amid the smoke and the grape shot, and bear him off on his shoulders, and yet he owed him nothing, and I, who owe so much to Thénardier, cannot join him in the shadow where he's lying in the pangs of death, and in my turn bring him back from death to life. Oh, I will find him. To find Thénardier, in fact, Marius would have given one of his arms to rescue him from his misery. He would have sacrificed all his blood. To see Thénardier, to render Thénardier some service, and to say to him, "You do not know me. Well, I do know you. Here I am. Dispose of me." This was Marius's sweetest and most magnificent dream. Thank you for joining Bite at a Time Books today, while we read a bite of one of your favorite classics. Again, my name is Bree Carlile, and I hope you come back tomorrow for the next bite of Les Miserables. Don't forget, you can sign up for our newsletter at biteatatimebooks.com. And while you're there, check out our t-shirt shop. You can look in the show notes or on our website, biteatatimebooks.com, for the rest of the links for our show. We'd love to hear from you on social media. You can find us everywhere at Bite at a Time Books.